Hi everybody, thank you for coming tonight and listening to my program, Top 10 Genealogy Updates. My name is Amie Kunkle Cox and I oversee the school libraries for Crawfordsville Community School District. And I also work part-time here at the Crawfordsville District Public Library in the local history and archives. And I've been an amateur genealogist for over 25 years. 25 years ago, it kind of correlates with the beginning of the internet, but it really wasn't the internet that got me interested in genealogy. It was the birth of my son. And so that's when I began my genealogy journey. So the first thing I want to talk about is family search. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking that family search is not new, and you are correct. However, usually people use the search box under, let's see if you can look up under here, just the basic search box, but then they plug in a person's name. And when you do that, lots of times you can find some stuff, but you might not find a whole lot. It just depends on your ancestor. And what I found out is when I was putting in some of my ancestors' names, a whole lot wasn't coming up, but there was a whole lot on family search. It just wasn't indexed yet. As you can see, they have digitized over 2.4 million rolls, and as of September 2021, they are all online. But again, they're not indexed, so they're not going to pop up when you put your ancestor's name in. So I figured out that if you search using an images search, right up there, that it pops up this box. And what it is you can search by place. So let's say you have an ancestor, there's a certain time period that they were in a certain place. What you want to do is you want to plug in that place and then click when that place comes up. So when you do that, it's going to pull up all the documents that they've digitized for this particular place. And remember I said it wasn't indexed. But some of these probate books and deed books have indexes built right in, and they're alphabetized by the last name. And so let's use one of my ancestors, Lemuel Nixon Fields, as an example. And so as you can see, we're looking at the place, we're looking at the date. He was there in Lowndes County, Mississippi, 1833 to 1843. And we have deed indexes that have been uploaded. And there's 227 of them. So you're going to click on the place, and it's going to pop up a list of the books. And if you see it right over here, it's like stacked pictures, small icons. So you can just scroll through. And keep in mind, sometimes they have multiple books on one page. So if you don't find it at first, it could be because it's in the next book and you have to keep scrolling down and you can tell when it changes books. All right, so let's say you want to save something. This is right here, this is still the deed. But if you go to this tools icon, it'll pop up this little box down here, and at the very bottom is the download button. Click that and it pops up a picture of what you want. This is one of the deeds I found for Lemuel Nixon Fields. Right click on it, it'll let you save, and you can save it right in a folder on your desktop computer. So I was able to find, oh my gosh, 20 to 30 deeds with Lemuel that did not pop up in the name it box, and also people that are in his, what you would call cluster group or fan club. They were stepsons and husbands of his stepdaughters and his brother, and people moved in groups. So the people in the groups had deeds, and so I was able to make a list of all of them, find the appropriate deed book, find the page, pull up the deed, and then save them. It was like a bonanza. Very exciting. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Okay, moving right along. Number 2 is podcasts. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking podcasts, they're too techie for me, or complicated. I don't think I want to mess with them. Well, I thought the same thing until my husband asked me to cycle across Missouri. cycle across Missouri. Hours and hours of cycling, and my music was not going to cut it. So I decided I'm going to delve into podcasts and see what's out there. The beauty of it is, if you have a smartphone and you get the app on your phone, and there's a search box and you can find anything that interests you, that's great for on the go. But let's say you're in your house, you're not going anywhere, and let's say you don't have a smartphone. You can access podcasts right on the internet. Just go to the website. I've included 3 of my favorite genealogy ones up here: Family Tree Magazine Genealogy Podcast, Genealogy Gems Podcast, and Extreme Genes Podcast. Lisa Louise Cook is the host of the Genealogy Gems Podcast. She's also a column writer on the Family Tree magazine itself, and she hosts that one as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the website, and for Family Tree Magazine Podcast, the podcast episodes are right there when you first get to the website. It's as simple as clicking the play button. For the Genealogy Gems, it was fairly easy as well. And then you see the recent episodes. See, look, episode 260. That's how many that are on there. And you just click the episode. And then down here, you can see this is what happens when you click 260. There's a play button. Super easy. So if you're cooking in the kitchen and you have a tablet or a laptop, it's just as easy as putting it on the counter, opening up the internet, going to the website, and clicking play, and then you're listening to a podcast while you cook dinner. The other genealogy podcast, can't talk, is Extreme Genes, and this is really great. You can see episode 408. All these specific topics in genealogy, you can find something that really tailors to what you're specifically interested in. And the host of Extreme Genes has Montgomery County ties. His wife family is from here, so it's kind of interesting too. Anybody have any questions? Okay, moving right along. Okay, so number 3 is Boolean searches, which probably is Boolean's funny. It's a funny word. This is something I teach the high school students when I teach them about web evaluation. This Boolean searches is what I like to call a laser focus weapon for surfing the internet. So when you go to Google, and I'm assuming you guys go to Google and search for people you're looking for, just for leads of primary documents, you are not going to have as much success as you would if you used Boolean searches. So what is a Boolean search? It is a way of searching the internet through a search engine box by either adding and all in caps between 2 words, or putting or in caps between 2 words, or not between 2 words, or my absolute favorite is quotation marks. They work so well. So think of this, the internet is growing and growing and growing and growing and never stop growing. There is so much information out there. And let's use Lemuel again. Let's say I'm looking for something on Lemuel. And so I'm going to put him in the search box. I'm going to put quotation marks around his name, okay? If you look right up here, I just put Lemuel Nixon Fields up there. And how many of us live our lives and we're like, hey, and you say your full name all the time? You really don't, right? So on this one, you're going to get more of the genealogy leads, like people out there researching him by his full name. Over here, he's living his best life down in Lowndes County, Mississippi, and he decides he wants to build a mill on his land, on the river. He's on the Tombigbee River. So when he goes to fill out the permit or whatever he's going to do with the law, you can see he used Lemuel and Fields. So I found this when I put in the field box Lemuel in Fields with quotations around it. What I'm doing is I'm trying to search every way he could have used his name in a document. So when you do that, you want to come up with at least 4 or 5 ways. So this is Lemuel in Fields. So here I tribe, just Lemuel Field. And this popped up the history of Columbus, Mississippi. And thing is, you saw on his deed, he signed L in Fields, just his first two initials. And when I did that, this popped up. And can I tell you, I've never seen this before. As more and more stuff gets added to the internet, I usually go back. I might do this again in a couple of years and see if I can find more stuff that pops up. So what is this? This is the Andrew Jackson papers. So you can tell, though, it gives me a date, gives me a location. He's in Alabama at this date. This is 1831, before he moved to Lowndes County, Mississippi. And I was like, ooh, what is this? Very exciting. So I'll show you the end of it here in just a second. But yeah, you can see like how prolific your numbers will be if you use the quotation marks, or maybe you like the and, not, or. But if you think about it, let's say Montgomery County, if you don't put the quotations around it, you're going to get hits on everything that has Montgomery in it. You're going to have everything that has county in it. And then, so it'll narrow it down to Montgomery County, but when I do that, I also put Indiana, because otherwise there's Montgomery County, Alabama, Kentucky, yeah, they're everywhere. So you've got to put in a little bit more. So what I usually do is I'll put like the county in parentheses, I'll put the state, and then I might even put a name or a last name, and all in the same search field. And what you're doing is you're narrowing it down to like a pinpoint in the huge vastness of the internet. So if any of you haven't done this before, just give it a shot and see if you find things that you've never seen before on a certain person. And does anybody have any questions? Okay, moving on to number 4. Okay, so this is the second half of this letter from Andrew Jackson. So he's sitting there buying land from the Native Americans, straight up. Andrew Jackson saw this letter. He was writing this letter to the agent. Oh, Andrew Jackson said, nobody is supposed to be buying land directly from them. You're supposed to be buying it from the government. So that was kind of interesting to see this. But anyway, this is Snagit. This is a tool by TechSmith. It's free. And I've been using this for about 15 years. I've been putting it on all my devices because I absolutely love it. And what it is it's a capture tool. So when you're on, let's say you find, using a Boolean search, let's say you find something really awesome and it's on Google Books. Well, I don't subscribe to Google Books, but I really want this. So I use Snagit. And what it does is it puts a little button at the bottom of your computer with your other like Chrome, whatever you're on. And what I do though is you either click that or you hit Control F11. And when you do that, hit it together, this little yellow grid comes up and it allows you to start at the corner. Now it won't do circles, it only does squares, but you pull it down to what you want. And then you can, once you're done, it'll pop up. You can save it to wherever you want it on your computer. Now, you're probably wondering, why don't I just do a print capture? What I like about this is you can control what you get, and you can name it whatever you want to name it right then and there, and put it in the folder that you want. It's just less steps and much more efficient, because you're going to have to take your print screen and you have to crop it in another program. So it's nice just to crop it from the get-go. And if you're wondering, all the pictures you've seen that I've used so far in my presentation, I used it with Snagit. So it is just fantastic. And I just can't tell you the stuff that I've been able to grab with this tool. Yeah, it's free. I love free.
Is that the URL, TechSmith.com?
Yes, that's the URL right there. And
screen is a dash capture?
Yeah, it's screen-capture.html. And I think it's on your sheet too. Can you tell me if it's on your sheet? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I hyperlinked some of these in case the people have access to this, but I wrote these out because it's probably easier for a lot of people just to see the full the full URL. Okay, so 5 is county and state databases. Again, you're probably like, Amy, this is not new. There was something I read a couple months ago, and it said, if you have a brick wall, chances are you might have missed something. You most likely missed something. And I was like, oh, dang. So I was thinking about a brick wall that I have. I'll tell you his name. His name is Alpha Kaiser, and he pops up in the 1860 census up in northern Indiana. Well, I know his brother married him down south in Bartholomew County in the 1844. And I know he was probably down there, and I can't find anything about him. It's so frustrating. Everybody's been there, right? And I read, go back, you missed something. Well, so one day I was like, okay, Bartholomew County, what can you tell me? I know he's there. So I went online to Bartholomew County. Who knew they had an archives down there? I didn't know they had their own separate archives. So I clicked on the archives button, and lo and behold, they had a database with a search box. And I put his name in there, and I tried different variations of his last name, and up popped a deed. I'm like, are you kidding me? At first I was like, jackpot, and then I was like, oh my gosh. So I contacted them because the deed image wasn't right on the database, but they were so kind. They said, you get 10 free images. She emailed me the images within days. It was fabulous. So my point with the county and state databases is the information that are in these databases, they do not pop up on your Google searches. So that's the thing. You've got to go find these databases and go into them to get the information, because not everything pops up on Google or Bing or whatever search engine you're using. And you need to do this as you move through your counties and states. So I talked about the Bartholomew County Archives. Shard, I have helped Eva with that. So Shard is a government database. If you live in a county in Indiana and you live in an old house, chances are that your house was inventoried by the state government. And then county by county, they release these reports. It takes them 20 years to get through the whole state, and then they start over again. So on their database, these used to be files in a file cabinet, because I'd gone down there to get one physically and have them copy it for me. Well, now with the database, everything's online. So you can, here, I'll go ahead and flip this so you can see. You can go into here, and you have to click on enter as guest. So you can just write on, if you Google Shard, and notice it has 2 A's up there, or I gave you the link. You have to click the enter as a guest, and then this is what pops up, structural surveys. Well, you can see there's a county button here. So you just put Montgomery, and then you just want surveys, or sorry, National Register. And then this is what pops up. See all these, Lou Wallace study, the jail, Elston's. Now you can search these through townships. So Eva and I, on one of the nights that we were doing the Friday night, we found that, and she was just thrilled, because I think it was her or her daughter lived in this house, and these pictures were taken from the 1980s. So they were early pictures that they hadn't seen. So like stuff like this won't pop up on Google. The other one, this is the Bartholomew that I showed you. You can see, it lets you put names in there, and you get 10 free copies. And then it's not too expensive. $1 base fee, 10 cents per copy, so not bad. So the other one or two that I'm talking about, has anybody seen the Illinois state databases? Delhi has. There is quite a few. You can see up here. Here's some, and here's some. There's little gaps in place and time, but if you were researching some of your family that crosses, the border past Mountain or Vermilion, this is worth a shot. I have found a few things in those. So I think I gave you the URL for that as well, or you could Google Illinois state databases. All right, this is my last one I want to talk to you about. You've probably been on this. This is, I call it BLM-GLOW. That's if you Google it, that's how it comes up. But it's the Bureau of Land Management. Again, they have a state box up here, drop down menu, and they have counties, and then they have where you put last name and first name in. And I put fields for a good old mule again. Now I knew if he had so many deeds, then maybe he didn't just buy land from other people. He probably bought it from the government too. So I went here and there was a load of them. So when you click on these, it comes down to here and you want the patent image. And then I always check out the related documents too. So what that tells me is who's the neighbors. What they're doing is the patent is for a certain piece of ground, and then related documents are all the people around that piece of ground. And so the patent image will show up and then that. So if you think about the fan club or the cluster group we were talking about, sometimes you can find some of those members that bought land next door to each other. And I also noticed that the Bureau of Land Management has also uploaded like surveys and things like that. So those are usually, I might be missing a spot here. There's usually maybe 4 documents or 3 documents. I've looked at those before. Those are pretty fascinating. So yeah, they've digitized a lot. Does anybody have any questions about any of the databases? Okay, let's move on. Number 6. All right, I brought show and tell for this one. All right, this is what I inherited from my great uncle. You guys seen one of these before? I had not seen one of these. It looks like a Viewmaster toy for me. So all of these slides, you guys probably have inherited some of these. Okay, well, this was fun to play with, and I put it in here, and I found pictures of my parents' wedding that I'd never seen before. I found first year birthday party pictures of yours truly and my twin sister. Never seen those before. So I was like, oh, I want these. I don't want them on a slide. I want the actual image. And so when it was in here, the light's on, and I'm putting my phone on there to get a picture, and the picture's horrible. I mean, there's light reflection. It looked orangey. It was awful. And I went to the internet and I'm like, somebody help me. I know somebody can help me out there. Well, they have adapters that have a USB on them, but they're $100, and I didn't really want to rent out and get $100, like another, because I have the floppy disk one, and so I found Slide Scan. So this was really easy. There's a free version, but I think I got 6 scans out of that. So I ended up paying the $30, but it's for a full year. So I got to get scanning these because I want to get, I don't want to pay it again. But $30 was a third of the price of buying the adapter that I probably won't use after I get these done. So it was really super easy to use. All you need is your phone and a computer. The only way you're using your computer is because you're using the light from the screen. Kind of like, so what I did was, I think I pulled up like a PowerPoint and put like a white, or just let the slide up there. And then what you do is you take the slide in one hand and you've got your phone in another and you're putting it against the light, and then you open the app, put your phone up there, it narrows in on it, you click the picture, and then it does its magic and it blows it up. All the color looks beautiful. That's 1970s, 1972, 1971. So it's pretty good, I think. Pretty good quality. So I went through and got a whole bunch of those. But yeah, if you're interested, if you have a whole box of these, I highly recommend it. I'm excited. I haven't been through the whole box, so I think there's still goodies in there I don't even know about. Does anybody have any question about Slide Scan? No? Okay. Okay, so my next item is Storyworth. Has anybody heard of Storyworth? Okay, well, I was on Facebook and Storyworth kept bombing me with ads. And I'm like, what is this? And I remember I found a book at Goodwill, because I love Goodwill, and it was one of those grandmother books that had questions in there, and you would give it to a grandparent, they could write their answers in it, and I gave one to my husband's grandmother, and I don't think she liked it. Like, I don't know if it was like too much to write in, but I really didn't get anything from it. Like, I was hoping that she might leave some stuff in there. And so when this came out, I thought, oh, maybe this is worth a try. So let me play. Hopefully this works.
Storyworth is the easiest way to record your family stories and print them in beautiful hardcover books. This is my dad. He turns 89 this summer. Needless to say, he has a lot of great stories. Now, luckily, my dad has had a chance to meet his grandkids, and hopefully they'll have many more years to get to know each other. But a few years ago, I started wondering how much of him they would really remember. That's why I started Storyworth. Here's how it works. Once a week, we'll email your dad a question that you've never thought to ask. All he has to do is reply with a story, which is shared with you each week. At the end of a year, his stories are bound into a beautiful keepsake book. We now have hundreds of pages of my dad's stories that I'll share with my kids when they're older, so they can hear them just as he would tell them in person. Invite your dad to share his stories today at storyworth.com.
Okay, so I bought this for my mom for Christmas. It's a great Christmas present because it's a little salty. I think I got $10 off, so I paid $89, but it has started sending her a question every Monday. I can get in there and tailor the questions, which I like because there's some things that I specifically want to know. And so I just need to get in there before Monday and change the question, but they have a huge bank of questions that they get the different questions from and send them. And then, like it says, she just responds. It goes into, I don't know how it works, but they accumulate all these stories, and then at the end of the year, it's going to be this beautiful hardbound book. And it gives you the option, let's say you've got 4 kids, it gives you the option of buying 3 more, or they can buy themselves 1. And so you can buy as many as you want. And so I'm pretty excited about it. There's things that I still think about that I wish I'd asked my grandmother before she passed. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that I got this done with my mom. And there's still things that, like, she's half Southern, so I was really interested about that. And she said, oh, when she went down to Birmingham to visit a great aunt, and there were segregated bathrooms, and she was born in 51. So different things like that. So anyway, this is Storyworth. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Number 8. I want you to know, and this is probably because of the pandemic, but there are free genealogy conferences out there and webinars. The conferences, like the Roots Tech, is very soon, so if you want to attend that, it's free, but you have to get registered pretty quickly. But it is timely. But there are things out there like webinars that are just waiting for you to discover them. And so these are some of the top ones that I found. The Indiana State one is very specific to us. The Allen County Public Library has a YouTube channel, and then the Brigham Young University has some too that is kind of an eclectic mix. I didn't pull up, see if I can get back on here pretty smoothly, but I did pull up a couple of the websites. So here's the Legacy Family Tree webinar. So when you come up on the website, well, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. I'm not sure why. It's supposed to duplicate. Okay, well, I'll just tell you. You don't see anything right away except that there's 1,690 webinars on their website. And when you scroll down, you start seeing them. And then you click on the title. It shows you the time frame, and then you click on it, and then it starts. It's kind of like the podcast, except it's the webinar instead. And then the Family Tree DNA is a YouTube channel. And so what I did find out though is you have to keep family tree DNA all one word, because if you space it out, you're going to get everybody that decides to name their stuff on YouTube like family tree DNA. If it says related any of that stuff, it pulls it up. And so I went to Google and put the family tree DNA all together with YouTube channel, and it came up the very first hit. And when you pull it up, boom, they're right there. And same type of thing. You can scroll down and see what some of the topics are, which I kind of like. And then some of them are, some are small clips, and then some are like an hour. So anyway, I just thought I would hit that since we are at home, some of us, for some time, and a lot of the conferences have been canceled or are now virtual. Okay, number 9. Ooh, didn't know if you saw this one coming, probably. So it's all about autosomal DNA. That's the DNA everybody's talking about when they say, most of the time, when they say they had their DNA submitted to a company. The most popular are Ancestry, Family Tree, DNA, MyHeritage, 23andMe. I can tell you my favorite is Ancestry. My great uncle's, I submitted his before I even knew what was going on to Family Tree DNA. And I don't know, I was just kind of sketchy about it. And then I did Ancestry, and I had my mom do Ancestry.com. And what I didn't realize, and I was kind of sad about, but you get over it, so what else are you going to do? It halves out in 6 to 7 generations, because if you think about it, you get 50% from each parent. So as you go further back, it starts to cancel out. And so you can only track so far back. And so, that kind of was like, oh no, I got to get everybody I can that's the oldest generation as I can, because then I can get, for instance, I have my great uncles, but it's on Family Tree DNA, and I can't snap him into my tree on Ancestry, but he's 2 generations, which is like 40 years later than what I could normally get. So I can tell you that with my mom's DNA, I can get back to the 1770s. It is showing cousins back to that point, but back further than that, it's not enough DNA to show that it's definitely cousins. So I did not get my grandmother's before she passed, but if Ancestry will someday, and I don't care if I pay for it, will allow me to upload his information from Family Tree DNA, then I'll have it. Right now, Family Tree DNA will allow you to upload your Ancestry onto theirs and 23andMe, but Ancestry is not reciprocal like that. But why I do love the Ancestry is because when you go on to when you're submitting your DNA to any of these companies, you're going to get back matches, lots of matches. And when you look at those, if there's not a last name that you recognize, you have no idea probably how this person's related to you. And the reason why I like Ancestry.com is because they have a tool called Through Lines. And if you have your family tree with Ancestry, which I've been on there for 20 years, I do pay the subscription fee because genealogy is my number one hobby. That's what I pay a year to do what I want to do 24 hours a day if I want to. Sometimes I'm up till 4 in the morning. You go down those rabbit holes. So if you have your tree on there, you can snap somebody's DNA into their profile on the tree. So my mom's is on there. I was in such a frenzy to get everybody's DNA the furthest I could on each line that it wasn't last year, but it was the year before. I bought the kits myself when they were on sale and then I called my grandma. I said, will you spit in a tube for me? Yes. Called my great uncle Christmas. If I bring a tube, will you spit into it for me? And I kept all the administration of the test myself. I just needed them to spit in the tube. So that's what I did. I went on all 4 lines. I went back as far as I could, and I was just, my other grandmother passed in May, so I was really happy to get that done before she did. But on the through lines, so I was able to snap her DNA in her profile. I snapped my great uncles in his profile. So what it allows me to do is I can even go back onto their administrative information, pull up all their searches, because since I got his, I don't have to sit there and figure out what line it's from, because I have 4. Now I know it's just his line, and it drops all the matches into wherever it goes in the tree. Isn't that amazing? So it starts out, I'll give you a little, it starts out with my grandparents, and then it starts, or his grandparents, and then it starts out with the next set, the great-grandparents, and then it goes great-great-grandparents. And as you're going down, you've got more, right? So then if you click on any individual, it puts up a little tree, and down, here's all the matches. I don't know who these people are, but now I know where they fit in the tree. It's amazing. So the other thing is, or I'll tell you, is that when it shows the matches, it's by centimorgans. That's the measuring stick. So like my mom and I share, what is it, like 3,000 and some centimorgans. There's a certain amount per generation that you share with. What they don't have totally figured out is that, let's say you have a half sibling or a half aunt that's going to have the same amount as, let's say, a second cousin or a first cousin. Like it's not exact. They can just tell you, and if you Google it, they'll have this information, but they'll say, okay, if you share 70 centimorgans with somebody, these are the relationships you can have, and they'll list them. And so you can, if you do a little bit more sleuthing, you can usually figure out how you're related. But like I said, the ancestry with the through lines, amazing, does it for you. Okay, the leads method, I'll share with you really quick. If you have, let's say you don't use Ancestry and you have all these shared matches, the leads method is assigning a color for each of your grandparents' lines. So you have 4 major lines and then assign a color. And then when you do that, if you go through like the first page, you'll see it start to emerge how many cousins are on which line. And then, from that information, you can tell like maybe only one person or nobody has tested from one of your lines. And so you can look at that and then you would know none of those matches come on that line. So it can get a little confusing. Deli and I have kind of delved into this in the last couple of years. I put this cover on here. We have this book here in the library. If it's something you're thinking about doing, they kind of lay it out for you, and there's some great videos online as well. Which brings me to number 9. You've probably heard a lot about this, forensic genetic genealogy. So when I did my DNA, I uploaded my profile to GEDmatch, and I uploaded my mom's. I uploaded everybody's, because what they're doing is law enforcement are now, this is one of the public databases that they're looking for matches to DNA that they've collected from cases that go back. I think I heard about one they solved from the 1960s. They didn't know DNA was coming, but they just did an excellent job collecting the evidence at the time. And now they're going back and saying, oh, I wonder if we have enough DNA, like anything that is a DNA profile. And they're sending it off to this, one of the leading companies is called Parabon. And they're taking that DNA and they're creating a DNA profile. It was amazing. I watched this show called Killing Fields, and they've been doing all their lead work. First they were looking for a Caucasian guy, and then they were looking for an African-American suspect. And then after they got their information back from Parabon, they had DNA, it was a Hispanic, it was a Hispanic suspect. But the DNA clinched that, but until they sent it off, they were all over the place. So it's really becoming quite popular in the field, and a lot of police departments are sending police officers to go get educated on this, instead of some of them maybe hiring somebody. Unfortunately, I don't think they're hiring a lot of genealogists, because I was like, ooh, this sounds really interesting, but it's easier for them to get their police officers educated on it. But I did hear on, I think it was Genealogy Gems podcast, that the University of New Haven has just added a graduate certificate in it. And so what they're doing is, this certificate is 4 classes. And the first one, you learn all about forensics. The second one, you're learning about what is genealogy. And the third one, they're combining it a little bit. And then the fourth one is all practicum. The professor just gives you a DNA profile off of GEDmatch and says, go do it. So they've had some success. I think they've had one cohort that's graduated, and they are working with DNA Doe Project up there. DNA Doe Project is, it's a bunch of people that form the DNA Doe Project. They're trying to solve cold cases. And so one of the podcasts here in Indianapolis, it's called Audio Chuck. It's a true crime. The 2 gals that do it are from Indiana, and they have donated some of the money that they make from their podcast to the DNA Doe Project. And so if you see this lady right here, this was her composite sketch made when they found her. I believe it was in Arizona. She was found behind a building. The cohort from New Haven worked on this case and solved it. So they're starting to get some cases solved just by people in the field. There's a lot of genealogists that want to, start doing some of this stuff. And so how do they do it? Well, what they're doing is, with the DNA profile that they get from GEDmatch, they see all the shared matches, and they take the highest ones and see if they're using the leads method. They see if they're from how many lines. And then if they figure out how many lines, they start to see, well, who is this person? And they start doing the genealogy of this person, and they take it backwards. And then they try to find out if they can get 2 or 3 connections of people. Well, at some point they have to start marrying each other, right? To get to the person who is the person with the DNA match. So then they can figure out by when was the crime committed. If it's in 1960, it has to be someone that is at least, I would guess, 18 years old. So then they can kind of figure out, well, we're looking for somebody, he was born around this time. They can start looking at the tree and say, oh, it's got to be the sons of this couple. And they could have 3. So they've narrowed it down to 3 people that could have committed the crime. And then they start casing them out. And I don't know, does it sound interesting to you guys? If I've lost you, CC Moore is one of the leading experts in the field. She has a TV show out called The Genetic Detective. It was out not last year, but the year before. It's on the ABC network. So if you have a smart TV and you have an ABC app, you can open it and search for the title. It's fascinating, and they lay it all out for you. And she actually has a whiteboard and starts showing you how she does it. Long Lost Family on TLC is more for adoptees. They use a lot of the same techniques. And so CC Moore caught the Golden State Killer. So she started in 2018. They're like, police department's like, what is this? And then they just started bombarding her with cases across the nation. And so that's what her show is. And you're watching her work, and she's figuring this out. Once she gets the DNA match from, like, they send it to Parabon, they put it in GEDmatch, and they give it to her. She's amazing. She's figuring out who the perpetrators are within like 2 to 3 days. She's just working all around the clock. So she's very, very efficient at what she does. That's for sure. Like, she just sees it. So you're building the tree back, and then you're bringing it forward to find your perpetrator. So anybody have any questions? Yeah, Terry.
Yesterday on the news, they had a program a segment about Parabon. And they talked to the main tech that they have, who's an older guy. And the latest thing they're doing is using DNA to actually make a picture of a suspect.
Yeah.
Not from, not from a dead body or anything.
Yeah, just
They're-
from the
They're
DNA
going
collected.
into micro parts of the DNA to make a picture so that they can capture.
She had them use her DNA to see what they would come up with, the picture wise, and it was uncanny. I mean, because they can get that DNA and they can say they have this color hair, they have these color eyes. They're making a composite that they're sending to the police department. It's amazing. Now we have all these police departments that want to do this, but they have limited budgets, and so that's why they are educating their own police officers, hopefully with free webinars and different resources that way. And then this is why Audio Chuck is donating money. And so I listened to one case on podcast, and they had said police departments are taking donations to specifically go to some of these cold cases. Even just, I forget what they said the number was, but just to send the DNA in to get a profile on it costs so much money. So they just, there's some cases out there that are pretty well known and oldest or most sensational that they want to get solved. So fascinating thing for genealogy. Just this whole new field that's popped up. So pretty exciting. Any other questions?
Not so much a question, but there is becoming a pushback on privacy
Yes.
and DNA and facial recognition software and a lot of those wonderful things you see the police departments using on television. And I think they probably are mostly good, but there is some controversy
Yes.
on this stuff.
Yeah. When you upload to GEDmatch, yeah, they have a lot of forms that you have to, say what, like privacy only or for public use. I mean, and they cracked down after the controversy because people didn't know that GEDmatch was being used. But it's interesting. I just heard on the news that the Greenwood Park Mall had an incident. I don't know if it was in the last week. It must have been recently, because since then they've installed a camera system that is checking every single car. They must have multiple cameras because they're checking every entrance okay? And it's dinging the police whenever a car pops up that was involved in something. So that was really interesting. I thought we're gonna have those at all these public places too. So it makes it harder to commit a crime for sure. If anybody's related to me in any way, they're gonna get caught.
Those cameras at the parking lots and everything, they were supposed to be up like this month.
The Greenwood Park Mall.
It was in the news today.
Yeah.
That's why I was up on.
Yeah. It makes you wonder if all the malls, we won't even know. So don't commit a crime, people, right? Okay, well that's my program.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I hope everybody found at least one thing you're excited about.
Just one?
Or two, or three, I don't know.